seriously, the one guy that was in charge of one of the places, he had no idea what the fuck he was doing. He had to, he also had somebody die at his thing one time. All right. Well, welcome everybody to this episode of your favorite fitness podcast. Insert title here.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Ty. And we're here to talk about a couple of interesting topics today. What do we have first on the agenda? I believe it is aerobic training and or aerobic training and programming, right?
Mm-hmm. A
And
little
then,
bit of the athlete perspective, a little bit of the coaching perspective.
yep, perfect. So we'll go into some of that, followed up by what we've been doing lately with nutrition as our second topic. This time we're talking about fasting and keto, I believe.
Mm-hmm. They go hand in hand. It's a good pair.
Is a very good pair. And then we'll finish it out with a third topic on how to create a career for yourself in fitness.
I'm actually really excited about this one.
I'm glad you are. So if that is something that you're into, stay tuned, or, just fast forward to the end and you'll hear all about it.
Yeah, just be really handsome or really beautiful or be a professional athlete. Done. Career achieved.
Check, check, check.
See you guys next week.
All right, perfect. So let's start off. Aerobic training or programming.
So why is this important to you, Ty? Or why now?
So I'm a big fan of aerobic training. It goes back to one of the things that we were saying about, I don't know if it was last episode or not, but when we talked about what the healthiest sport was, or what we think the healthiest sport is, and the main thing that was a factor for me in that discussion was longevity. So what you can do long term. And I think aerobic fitness, any sort of aerobic programming when done, appropriately, tends to have that ability to be very, you could do it long term over your life. It has that longevity to it because it doesn't tend to be high impact on your joints. It can be, you can have those overuse injuries for sure that can rise up, but you can be 15 or 85 and you can still hop on a stationary bike and do some aerobic training. So that's why I like it a lot. And then it also has a host of other benefits for athletes and people of all ages. So
yeah, so spoilers on our last episode, we both picked a low impact cardio. We both picked a water sport, rowing and swimming, as the healthiest or longest lifespan sports.
yeah, exactly.
So check out that previous episode if you want to hear more about which sport is the healthiest. But I hear you. The longevity of a human being is determined by their heart and lungs.
Yeah.
You can lose both your legs, lose both your arms. You can go through a lot of stuff and still be able to function at a high level. So I think aerobic capacity is important because your metabolic process is like directly tied to your aerobic capacity. And diseases like cancer, heart disease, cardiac disease, like all of those, even type 2 diabetes, with a better cardiovascular or metabolic health, you just have a better quality of life.
Yeah. And those are all those markers, again, something that we talked about, I think, in another episode, but those traditional health markers that you go to the doctor and they check on you and they do their blood work and all that. Aerobic training tends to improve all of those metrics as well. So another great benefit of it right there. So it's something that typically anybody can do to some degree, and it has a host of health benefits. And then thirdly, if you're an athlete, it's probably going to help you there regardless of your sport.
So some of the arguments against slow or slow distance or aerobic training, you hear like, I'm not going to remember the name of that enzyme that gets released that inhibits muscle or strength gain. You remember we learned about that in school like a million years ago?
I'm going to say mTOR, but I don't know.
That's it. mTOR. Okay. So too much aerobic training releases mTOR, which inhibits muscle growth, or I think it's muscle growth.
I think, yeah.
Okay, I get it. Number two, too much volume in running takes away your time for skill or other types of training. So I get that, right? So people say that I don't want to run a marathon because I have to run for 4 hours 3 times a week, right? That's a lot of training. Of course, that's a lot, but you don't have to do long, slow distance to get more aerobic capacity. And the other one is just people get hurt running.
Yeah.
Because there's no running coach. When you learn to lift, you watch lifting videos, you get a personal training session, you get someone to teach you how to lift. In my life, aside from my track coach, like no one ever tells you how to run. They just say run and they adjust the time and the distance, but the technique seldom gets paid attention to.
Yeah. And the biggest thing when you're just starting out, I think the biggest mistake people make are they do too much volume too quickly. At least for me anyways, I completely underestimated the amount of like the toll that it would take just going up and down for, 45 minutes or whatever. And my joints not being ready for it, my tendons not being ready for it.
Yeah. If you're cool with it, let's dive into some of these mistakes because I think this is a super important piece of aerobic training.
Yeah.
So you talked about the volume. So how many steps do people get bonus points for on their Fitbit? Like 2,000, you get like fireworks.
I feel like the daily goal was always like 10,000 or something. I don't know.
10,000. Okay. So that short duration of higher intensity, that alone is a massive increase in volume if you just walk.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What does your running warm up look like?
My running warm up, so if I'm running, it'll be one of two things. It'll either be just an easy run for like 4 or 5 minutes where I go super slow for the first like minute or two, and then just kind of gradually get into a nice open jog, but nothing too fast. Or if I'm feeling into it that day, I'll do like cone drills. I'll warm up with cone drills, different types of change of direction exercises and different types of marching exercises and all that sort of stuff.
I like to teach a running progression where you start with an in-place double leg hop and then you lean forward, and that forward lean is what propels you to change distance instead of you actively hopping forward.
Right.
A little bit of pose method-y kind of thing. And then we do like, you're pretty generic like A skips and B skips or whatever you want to call them, where you're still doing a double leg hop, but every other rep you lift up one leg. So leg down, knee up, switch legs each time through. And then we do in, out, and then I have them do like that same pattern, but with a leg kick. One of the other things that I really like is like some running against the wall, but people have to like be careful because if they just lean too far forward, then the Achilles just gets a lot of stretch from nothing.
I want to kind of talk a little bit about like when you're doing aerobic training, for any reason really, like how you should approach it, kind of like, if that makes sense, rather than what I see a lot of times. I was talking about this with a buddy yesterday who's also in this space who coaches people. And we were talking about pacing and how most people tend to miss the boat when it comes to pacing.
Yeah.
They don't quite understand what's going on.
You mean people do the same pace no matter what the volume is all the time?
Exactly. And so the whole thing with aerobic training, from my perspective, like is pacing. You're trying to work on a certain pace, and if you're not doing that, then you're kind of completely missing the purpose. Unless you're going from like being you don't exercise at all, and now you're trying to get into exercise, and so you're just going for jogs.
Yeah,
Sure.
just moving around.
But like next level up, if you're doing aerobic training for any sort of sport or just because you're really into exercise, then the next goal should be focusing on the different paces for the different times that you're working in. So yeah, let's talk about that.
So I am going to guarantee that we could both write down this answer and we would match up. Which pace do you think gets treated incorrectly the most often?
I would say most often the one that gets mistreated is that longer pace.
Slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meaning that, it'll be a 20-minute workout and people will do it as if it's a 3-minute workout. They'll just go as hard as they can.
80 RPMs on the
Yeah.
assault bike for 100 calories, and they just get out of the gate like that.
Yeah. But on the other end, you do have, that's the most common issue, I would say, for sure, especially in a CrossFit gym or any
Mhm.
sort of, any
High
sort of,
intensity interval training, right?
yeah, any sort of fitness class. Like that's probably the biggest mistake you're going to see. But there's also the opposite end that does happen sometimes where you have somebody who like hates exercise, but they're doing it just because they know they have to.
Mhm.
They're like typically older and whatever, and they just feel like they have to do it, but they hate it. And so they'll come in and they'll do the bare minimum. And so then they'll be the person who never pushes it at all, which is still like, at least they're showing up, but they are also missing that high intensity factor as well.
Yeah, I
But
think we had this conversation before with training age. So the higher your training age, the broader your range on a piece of cardio. So on a rower, take a calorie per hour. We'll say 1,000 calories per hour. That's not particularly fast. So when you first start out, fast is 1,050 calories per hour. And slow, okay, maybe they can do a slow pace, but they really don't have a gauge. So maybe they're down to like 800 or 850, but their fast isn't much faster than their slow.
yes. Yep.
And that's okay.
Yep. So the idea of a pace, or an appropriate pace, I guess, would be just going as fast as you can sustainably go for any given amount of work rest that's given to you. So going as fast as you can, that is sustainable.
Yeah.
So it's like, if it's a 3-minute workout, then ideally you're going as fast as you possibly can for 3 minutes.
Yep.
But if it's 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, or even 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off for 5 rounds, that's a drastically different pace, and it should be drastically different from the get-go, you know? But that is, I think, what's missed a lot of times is something just like that. They'll treat a 3-minute on, 3-minute off by 5 the same way as they would treat a 3-minute test.
Yep.
And that, I think, by far is the biggest mistake I see.
That's way too much pain for 5 rounds
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. And so you get that first round is like the output's way up here on the graph. The
Mm-hmm.
second round's down a little bit. And then the third round is a complete drop off. And the last 2 rounds are just survival mode.
I think Tim Ferriss wrote about this in his book, The 4 Hour Body. I think he was running with Brian McKenzie, and they were doing, I don't know, 10 400s. And the first 400, Tim smoked it.
Yep.
Second 400, he was like neck and neck. And then, so third, which is 30% of the total work,
Yep.
he got smashed. And then you just can't recover from that point. And Brian, was cool, collected. He had his pace. He just held what he needed to hold. And that doesn't mean it's not hard, because in any sustainable effort, the last 15%, in my opinion, should just be mental toughness. Can you eat shit for 15% of whatever's left over? There's some cool studies like bonking for marathon runners, and there's some temperature readings. And the best marathoners, their temperature peaks when they cross the finish line.
Wow.
Right? Because they're getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. And then when they can't get any hotter, they're done. So if you look at the people who finish like outside of the top 10, 15%, those people hit a peak and then their temperature drops and then they finish. They peak too fast.
Yeah. So, well, the interesting thing though with pacing that we're talking about is that it also applies not just to aerobic training, but also to that high intensity interval training.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're doing like a short burst sort of workout, kind of similar to the 400 by 10, but even shorter, even if it was like 100 by 10, or if you're on a bike and doing like 10-second sprint by 10, you'd want to take enough rest in between each time where you could actually repeat the same effort that you did the first time.
I know you're a smart guy. So how much rest do you take between a 45-second max assault bike?
Oh my God, a 45-second max assault bike?
Yep. How much rest?
I mean, the minimum that I'm taking is 5 minutes.
Yep.
That's the minimum, but it could be closer to like 7.
Yeah. And that's a reasonable amount of time to match the previous effort.
Yeah. But so often you'll see workouts where it's like 45-second all out, rest 2 minutes, go again.
Yeah, and it feels terrible, first of all. It feels terrible either way. But
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to repeat your effort. So
No.
you're missing out on this like whatever percentage that you're losing of training capacity.
Yeah. So if you see that workout, that let's say it's 8 rounds, 45 seconds all on the assault bike or echo bike or whatever,
Mhm.
and then 2 minute rest. 8 rounds of that, 45-second on, 2 minutes off. Now, if somebody's telling you that this is for some sort of like, I mean, that's a little long to be high output, but it is
Yeah.
high. It's not going to be max output, but it is pretty high, I guess. But 45 seconds, I'm talking. So if somebody's saying that that's the purpose of the workout is to work on that high output, I'm going to say that that's a bad workout.
Yep. I'm going to do 30 seconds hard and 15 seconds of sandbagging.
Exactly. At best, it might
At best.
be down to like 20 seconds hard by the end of that, or
Hmm.
even less. But if you're in a position where you're going to do that workout anyways, and you've recognized that that is a bad workout for high end training, then I think your next option is to do the workout, but do it in a way that is sustainable. So you do the 45 seconds, not all out, like you're selling your soul there the
Hmm.
first round, but you try and aim for what feels like 85% effort on that first round. So by round 5, 6, 7, 8, that 85% pace starts to
It's
get
hard.
really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I would say in high school, we ran track together and I would do a 200-meter run. And I feel like I topped out at my speed because we didn't do enough strength training.
Yeah, it's possible for
My
sure.
aerobic system was prepared to handle maximum, quote unquote, for those of you who aren't on YouTube, maximum effort for 25 seconds. But my muscles couldn't produce enough force or slow themselves down enough for me to accelerate anymore.
Yeah,
So for one of my other tips here for common training mistakes, I put not enough strength or cross training because it's super important that you are super strong. The faster you're running or the longer volume, your bones need to be dense, your tissue needs to be resilient, and they need to glide and slide really well.
absolutely. So we'll probably talk about this on another episode, but
Yeah.
a book that I've read called the Jack Daniels Running Formula, which is the best name of any exercise program of all times. You're like, I'm just gonna drink Jack Daniels.
That's what the plan says, right?
Yeah, just drink. But no, this guy, he was a very well respected running coach. I think maybe still in the game. I don't really know. Best book I've ever read on the subject. Haven't read that many books on the subject, but for what it's worth. And one of the main tenets of his, I guess, style of programming in the book, he has different, like, you can train for 1,000 meters, you could train for 10,000 meters, you could train for ultra marathons. He has it broken out in different sections, but one of the main tenets of all of them, regardless, is what he calls these E runs, and E stands for easy.
That's great.
So, like, yeah, so if you're running 5 days a week, 3 of those days might just be these easy runs where you go out for anywhere between 20 and 60 minutes, just depending on it. But there's no really prescribed pace. It's something that you could sustain for multiple hours if you had to.
Did you think that book made you like a drastic jump in coaching skill?
I think it gave me that book, Jack Daniels Running Formula, gave me a really good framework to work from. Because so I mentioned the E runs, but there's also these three other categories of running that he throws in there. I believe one's like a threshold run. One is I can't remember. There's two other. I can't remember what they're called, but it just goes by basically the time domain that you could sustain it for.
Hmm.
Those E runs being the longest ones, and then whatever he calls the fast ones, or something that you can really only sustain for like 2 minutes or something like that. So it's just these four categories, and he gives you a framework of how to program them, starting off with the E runs, then introducing one of the faster ones, and then introducing one of the threshold ones, and then the fastest one, I think, is how it goes in that order. And so, yeah, it gave me a good framework to program and divide up my training. So, highly recommend that for anybody. And I'm sure it carries over from running into cycling and that sort of stuff too. Yeah, anything else you want to throw in before we move on to topic number 2?
Do less volume and do more cross training. It'll stop you from getting hurt.
Yep, I will second that. All right, so moving on, topic number 2. Now we're going to talk about fasting, intermittent fasting, and keto.
This is nice because it pairs well with the aerobic system, like
It really
aerobic metabolism.
Yeah. So I'll just start by saying that I do intermittent fasting and keto. I've been doing intermittent fasting since sometime in 2017, sometime in that range. And then keto, I just started like maybe 2 months ago at most. So yeah, I have a little bit of experience with them both. What about you?
I've done more IF than I have done keto. Because dairy and me don't get along, and a lot of like fat sources are dairy related.
Yeah.
So it's a little tough for me to get enough calories that way. But I like intermittent fasting because I'm super lazy. So
Yep.
it's way easier to not eat until your fasting window, and then you just go to town.
I love it. I love it because I'm lazy. I love it because I don't like to worry about my food if I have to go out
Yep.
somewhere.
It
Like,
frees you.
yeah, totally freeing. Um, and I'll say the way I started it, well, actually, so the way I started it was I wanted to do it for a little bit, but I just didn't do it, I guess.
Mhm.
But then I got sick and it just killed my appetite for like a couple days. And then from then on, I was just like, well, I kind of been fasting the past couple days, so let's just give it a shot. And so that's kind of how I got into it. But the easy way to go about that is to just skip breakfast. Just skip
Yeah.
breakfast. And if you don't eat until like a normal lunchtime, whether it's 12 or 1,
Mhm.
then you're going to set yourself up probably for that 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window just by skipping breakfast.
So when I started coaching like a 5 a.m. or 5:45 or a 6 a.m. class, you don't eat breakfast because it's like 4.
Yeah.
It's basically still nighttime. So then I would coach 5:30, let's say 5:30 to 7:30. I would work out at 7:30 with coffee, and then I'd coach again at 9:30, and then it was like 10:30, and I'd been up since 4. And then by the time like you'd eat as soon as you could, 10:30, 11, and then at like 8 o'clock, I couldn't keep my eyes open.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So yeah, you were naturally doing it that way.
Yeah, yeah. And when I first started, I was like making breakfast and like eating microwaved eggs and a bagel like on the way, but it just didn't feel good. It felt like I there are a billion stories about bodybuilders like forcing food down. And there was
Mm-hmm.
this one about this guy who like hit the brakes because he was in traffic and he like puked all over his windshield. It was just like I didn't want to. That's an extreme example, but that came to mind. So I just stopped eating breakfast and I drank a lot of coffee. And I was also in school, and I had also started taking like some nootropics at about the same time, which are like brain enhancing, like the movie Limitless, just like more realistic. Like maybe you get a 10% boost, whatever. But caffeine, fasting, and nootropics, my brain was like on fire.
Yeah, yeah, caffeine and fasting is kind of, I love it.
It's like a
Although
cheat.
it seems like it is, although I haven't had caffeine at all today. And so I'm wondering I feel like I'm living in a weird world right now without caffeine.
Everyone else thinks so too.
Yeah, yeah. But
So your window,
yeah,
8:16.
8:16 is what I do now. So I started off with 8:16, and then for a solid like 9 months or so, I was doing a 2-hour window.
Wow.
Yeah, I was fasting all the way until like 5 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So that's when I would have my first meal, is like at 5. And then I would eat all of my calories for the day. I would eat within 2 hours, and then that would be it.
Could you
And
get in 2,500 in that sitting?
yeah, I think I roughly got in like 2,200 or so, which was like really disgusting. The
It was
full,
like 2 bags of Oreos. That's what it was. Then we're
that
done.
would be great actually. But yeah, no, I was getting all that in, but now I went ever since quarantine started back in like March. I was
Mhm.
doing it up until March. And then when that started, I just, for whatever reason, I went back to regular old 16:8.
Mhm.
But every now and then there's a day where I'm just like busy and I don't eat until 4 or something like that. It just happens sometimes. But yeah, that's kind of what I do.
That's easier to make a decision when you're stuck at home to just not eat than it is to meal prep and make yourself vegetables and like have a healthy breakfast and then time out a healthy lunch.
Yep.
It's just simpler.
Way simpler. That's why I love it, dude. And that when I started it, I had like a long commute to work, and sometimes I would have to like go to different places for work too. And so
Yeah.
just not having to think about what I'm gonna do for food while I'm out there
Yeah.
was so freeing.
Yeah, the burden is
Yeah,
gone.
so much better. So I absolutely love it. And if I know I'm gonna have a busy day, or I know I'm gonna be all over the place, or whatever it is, I will just tell myself, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just not gonna eat until like dinner when I get home.
So when do you do your training sessions with IF?
So I've done both. I've done where I do it in the morning,
Hmm.
and I think that's what I did the majority of my fasting on, is where I would train in the morning, which was interesting. It was nice actually to train on an empty stomach because I feel better
Yeah,
doing
I'm
it
with you there.
rather than feeling like I'm stuffed or something. But it was just a combination, I think, of waking up early to work out, and I'm sure the lack of food, I guess, or energy that I might have had. I'm sure that all compounded, and just over time, I got sick of it. Now I work out, so I'll eat my first meal at 1 o'clock, and I work out around 4:35.
Hmm. Enough time for your stomach to clear a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't eat anything. Like at 1, I'll eat, but then I don't eat again until after I'm done working out. So yeah, that seems to be working out pretty well. I don't feel like it's slowing me. I don't feel like I'm slow or anything, especially when you throw the keto in there. We can get into that, but talking about not having a ton of carbs, sometimes people worry about that slowing them down in their workouts. I'm sure it does, but I haven't noticed anything negative from it.
Yeah, well, for me, fasting, I feel great, but I start losing weight.
Yeah,
Paleo is the same thing. I feel great, but I personally cannot afford to lose weight.
yeah,
I mean, if I could lose 5 or 10 pounds, but like my cheeks would be all sunken in and you'd see me smiling and like my eyes would be yellow. I mean, it's not that bad. It could always be worse, but my performance will go down because of my weight,
yeah.
which has always been a struggle for me. I've always struggled trying to add additional mass.
So I've only lost weight while fasting if I also focus on the calories. Otherwise, I guess I just naturally eat enough to not lose weight.
Yeah, I don't because I like coffee and clear head, and then it gets too long, and I'll have 2 meals, and two isn't enough, or two. I mean, even 2,000 calorie meals, which sounds like a lot of food. When you're training and I'm up on my feet and you're moving around, you hit that pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah.
So, talk to me about keto. So IF is just a time restriction. It's the only thing you can eat the same foods. You can be IF and I guess that's what you are anyway. You're intermittent fasting and you eat other things. So talk to me about like give me a little keto definition and how you do it.
Yeah. So, well, first off, like you said, IF is only time restriction, and there's a host of health benefits associated with it, apparently.
Yeah,
Uh,
even to the 10-hour window. There's research for 10 hours of
wow,
keto.
really? I didn't know it was that short too. But calorie restriction slash intermittent fasting, they have similar effects overall, apparently, according to the science. And apparently, they can help with like just longevity and fighting off those diseases that come with age and whatnot. So, definitely look into it a little bit more if you'd like. Highly recommended.
Check
Now,
out Rhonda Patrick and Dom D'Agostino. I can't like talk highly enough about those two.
I agree, both of them very, very good. Now, keto. So that was time restriction. Keto is basically restricting carbs and making up for them in fats.
Hmm.
So like it's a super low carb diet, like less than a lot of the recommendations are like less than 50 grams of carbs a day, which is really low.
Yeah.
Uh, Me personally, I go up to 100. I give myself that freedom to live on the edge and go up to 100
Whoa.
because of being so active, it's not as big of a deal if you have a little bit more carbs in your system. And because I'm also doing fasting, so that kind of compounds the ketosis effect naturally. So if I have a few extra carbs, it's not the end of the world. So I give myself up to 100 on that. And the rest of it comes from proteins and fats. And a lot of those fats are from sources like you mentioned, like dairy, cheese. I get some from cheese.
Yeah. So ketosis is based on a millimole per liter ratio, right?
I think so. Sounds
I'm
right.
pretty sure it's millimoles per liter. So the what I pulled up is that 1.5 to 3 is like a standard you're in ketosis flag. Where
Okay.
do you sit? Do you pee test? Do you prick? Do you do any of those things?
I do not. I've not done any of those things.
You've
Um,
never done them.
nope.
Oh, that
Haven't.
surprises me.
Yeah, I just never got around to it. I
I mean,
suppose
getting
I
peeing
suppose
on
I
your
could do a pee
fingers.
test or something, but I just haven't. I just kind of I assumed more or less that I'm not a special person and that if I just followed the guidelines that were out there, it'd probably do the same thing to me that it does to everybody else.
Can we just pause there for a second? Because I love that. I just assumed I'm not a special person.
Yeah, I just figured it's most likely that it would do the same thing to me that it does to everybody else.
Yeah,
So,
we're all just regular people.
yeah. Now, sure, though, if for you were doing it for any sort of health reason or like a super strict performance related reason or anything like that, that's a good point. You would want to go ahead and test yourself to make sure you're in it because everybody is different and
Yeah.
maybe you're not in it. Maybe I'm thinking that 80 grams of carb is okay and maybe it's not. Maybe it's keeping me out of it. But based on all the research I did when I was setting up my diet, it
Hmm.
didn't seem like it would be a big deal. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, and we talked about tracking, right? You don't have to test your pee every single day if you're doing keto, but I think it's a smart idea to set your macros, find out where you fall, and check if you're in, and then you do that for 2 weeks, and then you're good.
And then you know from there.
Yeah, because I would guarantee that there are people out there that if they ate 100 carbs, they would 100 grams of carbs, they are not in ketosis.
Yeah.
Smaller person, less active. There's a lot of factors genetically that can just like predispose you to this kind of thing if
Yeah.
you do a lot of aerobic exercise. Um, so, what is your longest fasting period?
Well, I guess we just talk. Okay. This is actually, we didn't talk about this. I was going to say 22 hours because that's what I was doing for a little bit. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But totally forgot. You just reminded me about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, because I think it was last November and this is October. So it would have been like 11 months ago. I did a 72-hour, a 3-day fast. Is that 72 hours? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. I did that. So that was my longest fasting period.
that's a long fast.
It was a super long fast. It was interesting. It was a two-part thing. So it was, I believe, a 48-hour fast followed by a 72-hour fast. So you would go on Sunday night, you would have your last meal at dinner time,
Mm-hmm.
and then you wouldn't eat again until Tuesday dinner time. So that's a 48-hour fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't eat again until Friday at dinner time. So that's your 72-hour fast. It was kind of like priming the body, I guess, like trying something pretty challenging and then going for the really challenging one. So That was interesting.
Yeah, I want to know more about your experience because I just get hungry all the time.
So at that time, so first of all, I only did it because I was watching this video on YouTube. I don't even know how I came across it, but it was this guy. He's a popular YouTuber, but I don't know his name. But he's like one of those fitness guys, and he just like looks at the camera and like says some stuff that like gets you hyped up and whatnot. I don't know. But he was explaining, he was talking about this fast, and he was talking. I think he called it. Hmm, I don't know what he called it, but he had a name for it. And he was like, "Yeah, you got to do it." And he basically said, "Do it because don't be a bitch." And I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, I guess I'm doing this now." And luckily, well, or unluckily, I guess, I was watching it on like a Saturday.
Oh, cool. So you just like you're
Like, oh,
ready,
I guess I'm doing this tomorrow. Here we go. So that's why I did it. Now, my
but you're
experience,
not a bitch. So check that box.
yeah, I guess not. But my experience with it. So at the time, we were still like, it was before the world ended. So we were still going out to work every day and everything like that. So I think it would actually be more difficult to do now as I work from home and I would
Mm.
have nothing to distract me from eating. But at the time, going out to work, so that was nice. And, I didn't have too many negative effects. Like the 48-hour fast, other than just wanting to eat because I like food, like
Hmm.
just because I like it. But other than that, there was nothing that slowed me down. I kept working out the whole time. I didn't stop. I didn't take any days off that week. So it didn't affect me there. I mean, maybe I was a little slower, but nothing that felt like I couldn't do it. And then the 72-hour fast, the last like 16 hours probably, I was like, okay, let's just eat. Let's just eat. But yeah, I don't know. The way it's set up, because you're eating on Sunday and you're eating on Tuesday, it doesn't feel like you're not eating for 2 days. It only feels like you're not eating for one day.
Right. One full day and then you have dinner.
Right. The only day, calendar day, that you're not eating is on Monday. So you're like, I just got to get through Monday and then I can eat tomorrow. Not until the end of the day, but still you can eat that day. So I think that's the way it's set up like that is kind of nice. It mentally just makes you feel like you're only fasting for one day instead of two, and then only for 2 days instead of three.
Yeah, I thought Dom D'Agostino saying about talking about his 5 day fast. That sounds crazy.
Whew. I watched this thing on I think it was on Netflix about these different fasting. There's like centers, they're like rehab, it's almost like a rehab center that you can go to do an extended fast. And
Jail?
yeah, maybe. No, they are like they claim to be these like nice like rehab like sort of where they call like resort sort of places where you go and then there's like doctors that will monitor you and whatnot. But apparently it's very it's not well regulated.
Hmm.
And there are certain ones that you could go to that they don't know what the fuck they're doing at all. And they'll have you fast for like, I mean, some of them were like 30-day fasts.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the ones in the documentary were like 20 or so, but they mentioned a couple that were like 30 days. And yeah, it's crazy. And the one guy, like seriously, the one guy that was in charge of one of the places, he had no idea what the fuck he was doing. He had to, he also had somebody die at his thing one time, which they talk about, and he totally brushes it off as if it wasn't his fault at all. And then you see him interacting with his current patients, and they're like, "Hey, I'm feeling like this negative effect or that negative, like my head hurts or this, that, the other thing," and he's just like, "Yeah, it'll go away."
When you die. Wow.
The other place,
Wow.
yeah, the other place they highlighted seemed a lot more legit. Seemed like they actually had real medical doctors on staff, like actually caring for you.
They were doctors of like philosophy at this other place.
No, he wasn't even that. He was just a guy who liked it.
His name's Tom.
But
You
yeah,
could you definitely won't die after a week.
no,
I don't find that very dangerous.
no,
Maybe
you
a little. If you're a diabetic, you might.
if you're
Um,
diabetic, you will.
yeah. If
type 2
you
diabetes.
go 10, okay, so 14 days, I still think you're in the safe zone, but you're going to deteriorate mentally.
Yeah, and I mean, even after, depending on like where you're at, I'm
Hmm.
sure some physical side effects will set in before then.
Yeah.
But they do say what you can, on average, people can survive like 3 weeks without food, right?
Yeah. 20 days, that scares me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Anything over a week is a little bit concerning, I would say, because maybe you have some sort of health issue that you don't know about yet
Right.
that will be exposed when you don't eat for 7 days. But but yeah, I think for the most part, like I didn't have any concern for myself doing a 3 day fast. I was like,
Right.
I had no concern about that. But I can't imagine like I don't know. Part of me wants to do a longer one, like a 5 day one, and see if I could do it because it is something cool about it. Like
Yeah.
just feel like you have some sort of I don't know if it's willpower or
Mental toughness.
mental toughness or just like restraint or whatever. I don't know what it is, but you do feel like you have some level of accomplishment, you know? So it is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
If you've never been hungry, this is a good thing to do. So you realize what it's like for people who are actually hungry, like they don't have food.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the other thing with just the fasting in general is it just even if you're doing just intermittent fasting like every day, it just shows you that you don't need food all the time like you think you
No,
do. Like
definitely not.
absolutely ridiculous for you to think that you need to eat all the time or that oh my god, I haven't eaten, so like my day's ruined kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
like
and it's not an excuse to be cranky.
no, I understand because I've been there.
Yep.
But it's not. It's not. So I think it's good from that perspective, if nothing else, just seeing like, okay, this is what actual hunger really is. And the other thing I'm experiencing is just like some sort of habit or whatever.
Hmm.
You know? So anything else you want to touch on keto or intermittent fasting wise before
My
we
brain feels super clear on both of those diets.
same actually. So all right. So now on to topic number 3, final topic of the day, how to make a career for yourself within the fitness realm. This should be fun.
Yes. So I took it as there are two different paths. One, you can be an entertainer influencer, and the other is you are a professional, like coach, trainer. So if athletes fall into the influencing side, the athlete's coach falls into the professional development side.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? So if you're good looking, if you're a successful athlete already, you just start an Instagram page and then everyone and their brother hits you up with, "Hey man, try my brand, have my free stuff, wear my shirts."
Right.
And you can already make it. If you're super good looking and you just post videos and pictures of you exercising without your shirt on.
Right. Okay. I got you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
I'm on board. I'm on board with that.
during quarantine, Chris Hemsworth launched a fully virtual
Yep.
training platform.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I would subscribe to that. He's a good looking dude.
Yeah. I mean, I got to give it a shot. You might turn out looking like Thor.
Yeah, yeah, and that would be great for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Although if my wife does it and she ends up looking like Thor, I'll be jealous.
Jealous.
Create a divide.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. Okay, so you got professionals, and then you've got your entertainers or influencers. You
Hmm.
can go either way. Um, I imagine. I imagine it's funny. It's easier and harder to do either one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's easier, obviously, to just be an influencer who just posts his pictures, right? But it's also way harder to get a million followers on Instagram than it is to
Yes.
get 16.
And mostly bots, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, right. So on the other hand, it's easier to get 16 clients at the local gym who will sign up and train with you,
Yep.
but it's harder to actually know how to help that person. So it's kind of interesting. You can go either.
So since neither one of us are influencers, I wanted to start with that one. So, because we definitely have the plan if you want to become an influencer, it's fail proof.
Oh, okay. I want to know it because, like you said, neither one of us are influencers.
Yeah. So, obviously, we're experts in this category.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of influencing, like success with influence, whatever it is, any
Mhm.
category, you name it. But if you're an influencer in the category, I mean, you could be an actual expert who became an influencer because you're an expert. That does happen.
Yeah.
But
But for me, that you're not an influencer, you're a coach first.
yeah, exactly. So more often than not, those influencers are people who most of the time are good at marketing. Like that's really what it is. They social media is it's a legitimate, completely legitimate and highly utilized form of marketing across all industries. And if you're good at it, you can market anything, including yourself.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's people who are good at that, and also occasionally people who just got lucky and went viral for whatever reason. But I actually don't think that happens a whole lot. Most of the time, those people tend to just be those good marketers. It's not usually people getting lucky and going viral. That usually doesn't happen. It does, but not a lot. It's usually like marketers and people who are good at that sort of stuff. And maybe not marketing in the traditional sense of marketing, but like somebody who just understands the organic nature of that platform, whether
Mhm.
it's Instagram or TikTok these days or whatever it might be.
All right. So, are you ready for my foolproof million follower Instagram social media influencer plan?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to do it right
So,
now.
what?
I'm going to do it right now as you're telling me to do it.
All right. I mean, it could honestly be done in like a month,
Okay.
but not a lot of work. Just it takes a little time. So, pick your top 3 to 5, let's say 5 influencers in any specific category. So, we're in fitness. So, we're going to pick 5 of the most popular. Let's say top 10. We'll be a little realistic. We'll take top 10 of the most popular people in that industry.
Okay.
So you got to find out what those people care about personally a little bit. So maybe 2 hours of research. So take like Joe Rogan, you know what he likes and what he doesn't like. So find out what organizations, charitable organizations, that those people like giving their time and money and effort to. So let's just make this up. So we got 3 NFL football players from different cities. It's better if they're from the same city. But all 3 of them donate money to get underprivileged high school athletes football gear
Okay.
because it's like what they're about. So now what your mission is to do is to reach out to all of those people. 10 is too many, so less than 10, and say, I am running a charitable foundation. We're going to run a fundraiser to insert whatever their cause is. Get these high school kids football gear that can't afford it. So what I'd like you to do is I have you and the 9 other people who didn't agree yet, but you just name drop them. All of you guys, I'm going to send you some shirts and I'm going to send you a link for the shirt. And when all I want you to do is say, I love this shirt. I love this organization. This is what I want to do. And this is the company that's doing it. Right. So it could be a stupid shirt like Toys for Tots. Like that's a funny slogan. Everyone knows what that is. You just make a cool Toys for Tots shirt, which is super easy to do. Get a bunch of like mass produced t-shirts. So these 10 people are like, yo, shout out to my friend Ty. He's raising money to get high school football players their equipment. If you guys buy a t-shirt from him, like the one I'm currently wearing, every person that buys it, all the money is going to go help this organization. So you see how this
I
this
like it.
gets you there, right?
There you go.
So now they all give you a shout out, and let's say, I don't know, you take LeBron, right? If he gives you a shout out, you're good. You're gonna make it, right? But maybe you don't shoot for the A athletes. Maybe you shoot for like the B plus athletes. They're more likely to respond, but the idea is you're rallying around a charity and you really are doing good, right? So you're getting these kids money to do what they want.
Yeah, for sure.
And most of the time the athletes will be like, listen, here's $1,000 or here's $5,000 or, I'm already doing something, or like, hey, can you just give me like a 30-second video of you saying, hey, it's important because. So now 10 people gets you easily into the 100K followers ring.
I like it.
From there, right, now, since we're fitness people, we have this like, my friend Michael Jordan, or my friend Tiger Woods, or my friend whoever it is you pick, the more popular athlete, the better. So now you created this network, so you work with these people. The next step is to do this exact same thing again, but pick different people, right? And you say, hey, I worked with these 10 people, right? So now you're getting big. So you do this once, twice, 3 times, depends on how big the organization is. And now as a fitness professional, you're like, hey man, we're going to do the same thing, but it's a fitness challenge. It's the same price. All the money goes to charity. Right. So these guys give you the shout out. Now this comes through, and part of your requirement is they have to like film and make a social media post every day. Or maybe what's even better is you could get prizes from these people, like a signed jersey, and you pay for it. Under $1,000. So now you have these fitness things. Now you put in before and after pictures, and you get comments about how everything went. And then you do your free challenge or charity challenge. And now you have like a bazillion people, professional athletes backing you, and all these before and after pictures. And now you just run a charity event where every time you do it, less and less percentage goes to this charity and more goes to running your business. And then you reach out to like Rogue or like, I don't know, Bulletproof Coffee, or you pick whatever company you want that aligns with your goals. And at the core foundation, you still have this like charitable plan. But now, since you have the backing from all these people, you're done.
And now you embezzle that money.
You don't even have to embezzle it. You just give 2%, 1% to charity, and then you just get out of there.
I love it. That's foolproof.
Yeah, I should do it.
Yeah, you should definitely do it. That is
a thoughts. Give me some thoughts.
I think it could be done. I think you might be surprised at how many people might think it's a scam or not be willing to support it because they know, like, you have 5 followers and they have 30,000. They know like what that's worth, so they're not going to do it. But also, I think it would still work. It might just take more than 1 or 2 rounds of that. You know what I mean? It just might take multiple iterations of that, starting even lower and slowly working up.
So the more charity forward you are, the more likely people are to help you out.
Like if you're starting at 0 followers, then you maybe you're only targeting people with at most like 10,000 followers. So you're starting down there until you can work your way up to like the 50,000 to 100,000 follower range. And then, the big dogs after that.
And you've said this to me before, the longer you wait to monetize, the better it'll be.
100%. Yeah. If you got anything going on, like building an audience in terms of that, the longer you wait, the better. Because as soon as you start pushing any sort of monetization, they're probably going to have some sort of, I don't know, knee jerk like response to kind of pull away. Which, by the way, guys, go to our
our merch store.
You go to our merch store.
The TNA Fitness clothing line.
Yeah, exactly. Go check that out. Let us know what you find if you actually go to that website, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the longer you wait before monetizing an audience, I think for sure the better off you'll be. That's pretty much from Gary Vee.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was thinking with this, right? So Gary Vee says you should, I think he's a little extreme. He says you should like eat shit and live in your parents' basement until you make it. I'd like to move out before that. Just personal preference.
Yes, I do agree with you, but to play devil's
But
advocate here, to play Gary's advocate here, which one of us is the one with a multi-$100 million business? Which one of us ate shit until he made it and then made it?
I mean, he was handed his parents' wine business.
That is true. I know he has a narrative around that where he pushes back on that a little bit.
Fair.
Um, so I don't really know, but he did. He definitely did have his dad had a business that he allowed him to run. He ran
Yep.
it successfully, no
That's
doubt.
right. Hmm.
Grew it for sure, but he he was handed a business. That is true.
Yeah. Mad cred to Gary Vee though.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
I really do.
He's on next week or 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, now he's not going to come on because we just talked bad about him. We just took away his credit.
Yeah, so that's my foolproof plan for becoming an influencer. And I think if you have, maybe don't even have an Instagram page first. Maybe you have just a website for your charitable foundation and you do a couple videos with people in that foundation. I mean, look legit, be legit. Every person's cell phone can film a movie better than any camera 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be slightly exaggerating, but almost true.
15 years ago.
15 years ago, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So set up a charity, meet with those people, then reach out to your influencers or people with influence, have them be a face of your charity, and then hook them up.
Yeah. And I mean, what are we getting at here, too? Like, ultimately, you're trying to provide people with value, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's kind of the underlying theme there is like, how can we actually do some good? That's kind of what's going on there.
So. Yeah. So those causes will definitely get funded. So pretty much what I'm saying is everyone that listens to this, all two of you, mom, go out, go out and start a charity, get some people to throw some money at you, solve a problem, and then you'll get cred for doing that. And you deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you can just work out without your shirt on for the next 10 years.
So, all right. So that's your entertainer influencer route.
Yep.
Now let's go let's just cover the other side real quick. So the professional side.
Yep.
So this is something that we've both done. You're still doing it. I am not as much anymore, but I did do it. And so how to become a legitimate coach and trainer professional.
Yep.
So we talked a little bit about it on the episode where we covered how to vet a trainer, where we mentioned having like a credential, right? Have some sort of credential, right, to get into the foot in the door. But then what else? Like where do we go from there? Like I have my credential now. What do I do?
So I like making a step-by-step approach here. We don't need to detail the actual like how-tos of it, but you get a certification because getting sued sucks, right? So you should be an athlete this whole time, or you could even start as an athlete. Just exercise, right? You should look the part, period. Yeah. So athlete to credentialed coach to an intern, aka glorified like fitness assistant. Basically, you just got to see what people are doing. Then you go to a coach. Then you evolve into like managing coaches, and then from there you go into business development, and that's the hardest step. Learning how to be not a fitness professional anymore. Now you have to learn how to run a small business.
Yeah.
And then you own the small business and you know how to take care of all those people.
Yeah. Yep.
So being an athlete's easy. Just go and start working out.
Right. So ultimately what you're getting at here is going this route. I mean, the way I think of it is kind of there's like two stops along the way. You could either go to the level you were talking about of being a coach, and you can stop there.
Oh, for sure.
And you can just be a personal trainer who has a bunch of clients, or
Yep.
even a group fitness coach who coaches a lot of classes. And you can stop there and you can make a living there if that's the route you want to go. And some people do that really successfully,
Yeah.
making a lot of money doing it if they're good at what they do. A little bit of business work ethic involved in that, and some luck too, I'm sure. But then, or like you had mentioned, you can go further and you can kind of evolve out of the actual training coaching role and into a business owner manager type role.
Hmm.
Like that's kind of where I delineate the two. And I think you could go either direction,
Yep.
just depending on what you want to do. I think it's probably easier to get into the trainer route because it's a
Hmm.
much lower barrier of entry. You just need your credential, you need to get hired somewhere, and then you just hustle.
Yep.
Um, but I think it's probably more likely that you will have a long-term sustainable career if you go the route of ultimately becoming a manager than owner of a place,
Hmm.
whether that's opening your own place or buying someone else's or whatever. Now that's probably a harder thing to get into because there's fewer managerial positions and not everybody doesn't own a business, so it can't be super easy to own a business.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody would do it. But if you do it, you're probably going to have a much more long-term sustainable career than if you just stayed a personal trainer or coach.
Yep. I would say that coaching is a profession and owning a gym is a career.
Okay.
Because you just run out of energy. There's no 401k for being a coach.
Yeah.
I don't want to say none, but
Yeah.
it's way easier to just work 9 to 5 coaching classes, right? But the longevity of that career is short. It's hard to do.
It's a really hard thing to do. And the thing is, you're not going to be doing 9 to 5. You're going to be doing 5 to 7 at night, five
Yep.
in the morning to 7 at night,
Hmm.
spread out across the day. And it's going to be like, it's going to make it really tough for you to have a life outside of that.
Yeah.
That becomes,
Now, I will say that as a personal trainer, you can definitely make a living, a good living, working not that much.
yeah. So that's a good point. I know a lot of, well, I don't know a ton personally, but I know of a lot of trainers, even just in the local area here,
Hmm.
who work at some just like regular old health club places, and they do small group training where they'll have like 3 or 4 or 5 people in the training session, each paying like 40-50 bucks for that hour.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So become an athlete so you know what it feels like to be in a bad position and feel the pain of a workout because I think that's super important. You need to know what you're making people do.
You need to know what you're making people do, but you also, like, you do need to live it. We talked about this,
Yeah.
with the vetting a coach. You do need to live it. If
Yeah.
you don't live that role, then there's no chance you're going to be good at it.
Yeah. And it's going to come off as disingenuine.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Now, the hard part is becoming a business owner. And that's when your mind has to shift completely because now you're out of the trenches. And this is where having the whole process, you should have a mentor because that'll just make everything go way faster.
Yeah,
Just like, dude, the first time I snatched 200 pounds, I was like the only person in my gym that snatched 200 pounds. Honest, I swear, the next week, like 6 people all did it
they just,
immediately.
they just needed to see you do it.
Yeah, yeah. You create a possibility. You create like, oh, okay, let's do it. You
Yep.
open up the pathway. So let somebody else open that pathway up for you because they want to help. Because usually personal trainers are like, that's what they like to do. They like to help people.
Yep. Yeah, having a mentor is huge with anything, but especially as you're stepping out of those trenches and getting into a whole new realm of something that you're maybe completely unfamiliar with when you're starting out
Yep.
running.
And that mentor should be so valuable that you'd want to pay them. Whether or not they cost money doesn't really matter, but their advice or their I don't want to call it friendship because it's not quite friendship, but it is a little bit.
Yeah.
Like whatever your time is should feel like gold to you. It should feel like, they deserve something because of how awesome it is to get that advice.
Yeah. So I think those are the three options: having either training in a gym and being a personal trainer, or maybe, you know, out of your garage, whatever, or being a manager at a gym / owning a gym, or Instagram fame.
Yep. Which you're solving in my plan, my foolproof plan, you're solving a world problem that needs to be solved.
Right. You have a plan that has taken making an Instagram model into some sort of noble cause, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll turn so like the noble cause is being attractive for some people.
Yeah.
I don't have that luxury. This is why we're doing a podcast. Oh wait, we're on video too. Oh,
Oh no.
that's okay. We won't tell them where to find it on YouTube.
Anyways, all right, guys. So that was it. We covered our three topics for the day. We had aerobic training. We talked about intermittent fasting / keto, and then we touched on becoming a trainer or coach, or be a professional in the health and fitness industry. So awesome. If you guys enjoy, please subscribe, like, share, comment, all that jazz. All right, cool. Well, thanks, guys.